Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. We are going to zoom in and really focus in a little bit more in depth on the role of emotions and feeling when it really comes to moving through and healing through the gaslighting, the depersonalization, a lot of the cognitive dissonance and flashbacks that can result as a relationship with a narcissist or psychopathic individual. Someone who has used quite a bit of emotional manipulation to create a dynamic in the relationship where their narcissistic needs have overpowered you in your life, and you have lived, in essence, in reactive formation to them versus really kind of coming from your own heart space, your own emotions, your own light and your own joy, and furthermore embracing and permitting that and knowing that that is okay, and that is really what life is calling you for, is your ultimate happiness and joy, and that the narcissist, through their negative evaluation, makes you feel like you are in the wrong for wanting and expressing those needs and living attuned to that. But first of all, I want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have recently made a donation to the Peace and Harmony channel. I have a wonderful viewer out in the Texas area who I've corresponded with who made a donation. I want to give you my heartfelt thanks for really tuning in and really focusing in. And I'm so glad that we've been a resource of knowledge and tools for healing for you. And it really does help keep the channel alive. There, this is, I don't really have any monetary gain from this. YouTube is a great channel for you to obtain some very important documentary and information which isn't accessible to you and your fingertips elsewhere. So I really appreciate your donation. It really does help keep the channel alive, and it keeps me inspired to develop deeper content according to your needs and your values. So thank you so much for your donation and your feedback. And I just also want to give a quick shout out to my viewer who recently did an incredible portrait work, which you can see presented here. And I would really encourage you to, for anonymous sake, I'm going to keep his information private, but I would encourage you to get a portrait done, a healing portrait done of your new and healed self from this gentleman. Not only does he do beautiful, powerful work, but it's very gentle and it's very energetic, and there's a lot of healing energy that comes from it. And we talk about how important it is to live in that positive space, that positive healing space, and to really have that kind of gush forward from you, and to live in that positive space, which many people have never even experienced in their life. They might have been wounded for years or decades and have never had a chance to really be themselves, live from that authentic space without feeling judged, criticized, shamed, or really kind of overpowered by a narcissist. They have never known life from a pure existence standpoint, from a pure positive consciousness standpoint. They've always been aware of this narcissistic or pathological individual, maybe for a lot of their formative years or for their family years, where they're presently maybe had children or living, under the same roof with this narcissistic, or even from a society point in general, so much of a narcissistic outer effect or pressure that creates a reaction formation to this individual in your life. So you always have to live in reaction to this person and living upon their evaluation, assessment of you, rather than allowing you to develop and live from your own expressiveness from within. And this gentleman here, if you want to give a shout out, make in the comment below, please contact me, and I'll direct him, to view your information, and you can see, what he can do. I think he can do a lot of work from, like just a picture that you have of yourself, that he can do work from even just a picture. And I mean, this piece arrived in impeccable, perfect condition, and he can commission some healing work for you, and get to know your interests. And oftentimes, I think it's so important to have a healing gift for you in your environment. And that's why I talk about in the book that I'm producing how important it is to get a a healing gift for yourself at least once a week. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but something that is symbolic to you and helps create that positive emotion within you. Oftentimes, the narcissistic wounds that are inflicted upon people with great tendency to give or to love or to have affection and are really more emotional, sentient beings, the narcissists aren't always this way. Because of their heightened and pathological sense of self-importance and coupled with a lack of empathy, they're very much living from the outside in. In other words, they're always living by a public persona versus an internal persona. And they're trying to always, look for you to compliment them from the outside in and basically be supportive or supply source to their needs and fan how they look. Basically not, fan basically as a support, almost keeping them going on an energetic level versus often is depleting of you and your needs. And so people get into a relationship of, the gaslighting and the cognitive dissonance, and they really kind of get separate from themselves and feeling and really knowing themselves and knowing what makes them happy. And we get a lot of comments here that people say, I've not really ever begun to live my life yet. I don't know what makes me happy. I don't know what I want. And so if you are in that space where you don't know what makes you happy because you haven't allowed yourself, it's time, it's time to get to the very basics. And it's time to get to the I and to the feeling space, and instead of feeling so much in fear and helplessness and depression and anxiety and all those negative feelings, it's time to let those go. And if it's so severe that you need medication, then it's time to go to your primary doctor and say, you know what, anxiety has controlled me so much of my life, or depression has controlled me, or this paranoia or this hypervigilance, then you need to go to your primary doctor if it's that severe, but you need to get into, allow yourself to go to the places within yourself and, in complementing in the environment around you so you can, I call it unplug from this negative energy. So when I talk about the negative energy, it can be the person's voice. It can be their picture. It can be, living with this person, staying in contact with them in your phone, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Snapchat. You're still keeping in contact with them. You're still keeping their negative influence around you. And that's part of the healing journey, is slowly but surely letting go of, what they had given you in your life, and, keeping the positive, but realizing, that oftentimes this is now giving you wisdom to move forward. And rather than staying stuck, in, hours of anger, hours of reactivity, hours of resentment, hours of depression, you need to shorten down that time and get it down and say, I've indulged enough in the negativity now. It's time for me to prime my emotion and my feeling with a different feeling, a different experience, something that I have not had before. So whether it's going and just getting into nature, taking a walk, going by a local forest preserve, going by a local garden, going by a local gazebo, a thinking tree, and just going and experiencing that, where it's very positive and it's very open and it's very fresh. And you're allowing yourself to then really reflect and take note of, the things that make you happy, the things that you enjoy. If money wasn't an issue, if this person's criticism wasn't an issue, if time wasn't an issue, what would you really love to be doing? What would you really love to become in your life? If all the negative feelings weren't an issue, where would you really love to go? If all this negative information, these negative erroneous messages from this wounded person weren't constantly playing in your mind, what could you feel instead? Could you go put your, could you go and put a bathing suit on, and can you go swimming? Could you go to a local health club and go to a sauna? And could you get rid of those negative feelings, and reduce them to 30 seconds a day? I'm only going to think negatively for 30 seconds, then I'm snapping out of it. I'm snapping my fingers. I'm, grabbing my my healing gift that I've given to myself, whether it's, whether it's a crucifix, whether it's, a charm. Why don't you have a healing gift for yourself? Why don't you give yourself a candle? Why don't you give yourself a healing gift? Why don't you give yourself something that shows your commitment to your healing? Why haven't you altered yourself? Why haven't you gone in front of yourself and the most divine and saying, I commit to my healing, I surrender? Why haven't you done this? Why haven't you given it up? Why are you still holding on to this wound? You really need to make that commitment. And really, it's like I was discussing with a client the other day, it's really like a commitment when you're going before the one that you love and you're committing your life to them. Some people, and sometimes that commitment that's why it's so difficult to let it go, because if you gave a most precious item like a sacred diamond or sacred gold, and you made a commitment on an altar in front of this person, that was from the deepest part of you. And if that deepest part of you is wounded, then that deepest part of you is where you need to go and make that same commitment to yourself. Why can't you, get down on your knees to yourself, and why can't you get before the altar of the Most High and Divine Intelligence and say, please heal me. Please, I'm committed to becoming my best in this life. And that best can be, I'm now wearing silk. I'm now wearing cotton. I'm now wearing, more high frequency colors. Now I'm gardening. Now I'm validating that for myself, and I have that commitment and love that I was trying to give to another, but it's really meant for me. And I'm allowing myself to exist in that emotional space, and allowing yourself to feel that sort of surrender. And I know a lot of people are probably crying right now because it is so painful. It is so painful, the love that you had expressed to give to them, that basically, they smacked you in the face. They basically were committophobic. They were not able to be with you in that space. They had failed you in that relationship. They had failed you. And that's why society's failed people in general also, because, you have employers that fail you, that don't give you what you're worth. You eat food that keeps you not feeling your best. It has such a ripple effect. So why can't you go before the altar of your life and say, I surrender. I surrender that negativity. I surrender that wound. I surrender that negative evaluation of me. I give it up. I'm not that disappointment. I am not that selfish. I am not, all these negative things. I am not less than. I am not inherently flawed. I am made in a divine intelligence that's keeping my body working, that really knows my emotional reality, and that makes me happy. And why aren't I acting on those? Why can't I exist right now and write a list of 10 to 20 things that absolutely you delight in, that somebody told you was stupid, that was not, what is that? Why are you interested in that? What are 20 things that you had always had a fascination with? Maybe it was when you were a child, you were interested in Jacques Cousteau or National Geographic or the documentaries, or learning about different cultures, or learning about the future, or learning about how Teslas are made. Maybe you're interested in, the information of the future, and like technology and robotic healing, as it works into the automotive space or the medical space. Maybe there are so many things that you're interested in, but because you are vibrating so negatively, when I say vibrating, I mean energetically, you are existing in this very depressed state that's really not the real you. That was basically put there in place by negative messages. So, go down and say, I'm releasing all of these 100%. It's not, 50-50. I'm going to, exist 50%, in negative and 50% in the positive. It's just like, when you make that commitment to yourself to live in that positive space, and little by little, you go there and then you follow up with the tools with which I'm stating, and you go to create and build more positivity, you'll accumulate more positive energy in your environment. And you'll get rid of that negative, but you'll create the more of the positive, and you'll come to that and be able to I want to say hold on to the positive, or, really be there and exist there. And it becomes more of a balanced space. And even if you have to be very alone in that space, then you need to give that give that to yourself, and then go out and share it with the world. Go out and share it with one or two people who get you and remind you of the positive with who you are, and let go of that negative, and really give yourself to receive in it, and receive in that love and that heart space, versus the fear and the analysis of really hyper judging yourself that was oftentimes put in place by the messages of the narcissist or psychopathic individual. It's peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.